What does funtrepreneur? Explain that concept to me.
Yeah. So I could probably say this now, although I wouldn't have maybe admitted it when I first started calling myself that. I think part of it is that when you use something that doesn't sound like you're seriously putting yourself out there as a business person, it's almost like the self-doubt was talking. I was like, oh, if I'm a funtrepreneur, I'm not taking it seriously. Like, I'm not leaving my law career to actually be a business person. You know, that imposter syndrome was like, oh, this just says to everyone I'm just having a bit of fun. I think that's probably part of the subconscious reason I chose that word. But I also think that now that CCA has become my philosophy and finding joy and fulfillment and happiness rather than just productivity and success and financial metrics to life, I think also part of it was reminding myself not to fall back into the trap of taking everything too seriously, because I do that. That's my default setting is like make everything a serious endeavor and let's A-type high achieve at all things. So I think part of it was just don't lose that sense of wonder. Even using the word yay is very childlike, but it's because for so long, that's the side of myself I lost. So as a way of forcing myself to sort of keep that alive, you have to have fun along the way. Otherwise, what's the point?
We're going to say that looking at your website, that's not the serious tone. Doesn't there's an element of seriousness, I suppose, but there's also a lot of fun on there. So I actually really enjoyed reading that one. It was just good to see that it may have gone missing for a while, but clearly you're back in full stride now, which is great. So you started with just the matcha suppliers, and then it transitioned. Was the cafe the next step?
Yeah, so it originally started as I mentioned, I wasn't allowed to drink coffee or any stimulants when I was really immunocompromised, and in my search for like a desperate hunt for a healthier form of caffeination that was legal also, because I was a lawyer, I was like, oh my God, I need something for energy. My husband and I ordered the minimum amount that we could from a tea farm that had all the requirements that we wanted. It was organic, it didn't have sugar added, it could be shipped to Australia, the FDA approved it, all those kinds of things. And it was 2 million serves too many for two people to consume by the use by day. So it wasn't even a business idea. It was literally, let's just sell some to get rid of, recoup our costs, like a one-time project. And then a combination of, like, I know people sometimes attribute luck too much to what they do, but we definitely hit the market at a very lucky time where it sold out in a week and then just snowballed, and it became a business before we even realized that it had become that. So I kept doing both of those things, just kind of coping with this random business that had happened and working at the law firm full time for another 6 to 8 months in denial that it had actually gone bigger than we'd ever hoped or wished that it would. And then it got to the point where those two trajectories became mutually exclusive, just from a time management and like health management perspective. And we got a contract that the only way to say yes to it was for me to go full time, pack the matcha to fulfill the order by the deadline, and then sort of take the leap and walk away from law. And once I did that, I realized that my whole metric and matrix of decision-making had changed. I'd gone from a corporate lawyer whose job was to identify risk and avoid it at all costs. All I had to think about, and what I was very, very good at, is looking at what would go wrong. To make a business survive, you have to have a good appetite for risk. You have to be willing to push through all those possibilities and bank on the fact that it will go right, which it continued to do kind of before our eyes. So the next 6 months was just upskilling as quickly as I could and figuring out what on earth a business was, and cogs and all those things I'd never had to think about before. The demand was so strong that even just fulfilling orders was actually quite a struggle to learn things on the go. But once I'd gotten into that whole mindset of like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, the worst case scenario is never as bad as you think it is. And even if it is, you can just recoup and start again. It's like that failing forward mentality. We realized that, for a year by then, Maiden had been growing and growing as an online store, but I was really missing the human interaction because I'd gone from working in a team in a big building to just in our office at home. And we thought, why don't we, part of the education piece of matcha is how to make it properly and what it tastes like when you make it well, as opposed to at home where people often just tip the whole thing in and then wonder why it tastes like crap. Yeah. We decided,
maybe that's what I've been doing, because I must admit not quite hit the nail on the head there, or maybe I just don't have the taste. But
usually it's user error and us not educating people well enough on like the different ways to use it, the right measurements and all that kind of stuff. So we thought if we could activate from a marketing perspective a really cool venue where you could have your first kind of gateway experience into the world of matcha, but also we wanted to leverage other gaps in the market that we were seeing. So our now business partner, who was a fellow law graduate, we did law together at uni. He escaped a lot earlier, went into hospitality and had become a hospitality heavyweight. We were traveling in LA. We were looking at beverage trends. He was looking at food. And we discovered this massive gap for vegan eating and matcha drinking, those two things that were united by longevity, which was keeping the beauty industry alive. Like, why has no one pitched a restaurant towards living longer for you and the planet? Everyone had made it either animal rights or, you know, religious and ethical reasons, which was really, for the mass market, too intimidating. And 3 months later, through a lot of painting and self-plumbing and us kind of DIYing and just seeing how it went, we didn't want to invest a huge amount in case, you know, it didn't take off. It was just a pop-up in the beginning. Then the Hemsworths discovered the cafe and they loved it. And then that went viral. And it was just, again, like another, I think you get so overwhelmed by how things could go wrong, but you forget that things could also go right, and they could also go more right than you ever expected that they could go. But if you don't try, you'll never know that. So I'm so glad that we took that risk, because then that was kind of the next iteration of the business, which is also still open.